This is River Currents. Float downstream with us as we follow current issues in the Susquehanna River Basin.
Hey there and welcome. I'm Stacey Hanrahan, Communications Specialist here at the SRBC, and today we have a full house. Basically, we've got a who's who of water loss management. Sukh Singh, the Pennsylvania State Manager for RCAP Solutions, George Kunkel, Principal of Kunkel Water Efficiency Consulting, and Drew Blackwell, Director of Water Efficiency for Kavanaugh and Associates. Did you know that in utility systems across the nation, an estimated 6 billion gallons of water are taken from sources every day that never reach the customer? That's enough to provide drinking water to the 10 largest cities in the United States. Of course, water loss means revenue loss. Luckily, there are solutions out there, and our three experts are actually coming together next month to provide leak management training to water utilities in the Center County region of Pennsylvania. But today, they're going to let all of us in on some of those best practices. Thank you for being here today, everyone. Sukh, I'd love to start with you. Tell us quickly about your company, RCAP Solutions, because then I really want to get into your water auditing and leakage management assistance program.
So RCAP Solutions is part of a nationwide network, if you will, of technical assistance providers and trainers. And we have varying backgrounds. Some of us are engineering, some of us are in water quality management, et cetera. But the key thing that I want everybody to know about RCAP Solutions and the RCAP network is that we are basically technical assistance providers out there, boots on the ground, to provide that resource and that information directly on site to communities that are having challenges with their infrastructure and also having challenges trying to find solutions to their environmental challenges. And we cover for RCAP Solutions, we cover 9 states and the territories, and of course, Pennsylvania being a key state here.
So for this particular training, you're going to be in Center County, the State College area near State College of Pennsylvania. Tell us a little bit about specifically this training. Who can come? What would they learn there? That kind of stuff.
So the target audience for this training is boards of utilities, small water associations, townships that are experiencing challenges with their infrastructure or wish to learn more about the practices of water auditing and also best leakage management practices. We also work with the operators of these systems, so we are inviting the boards, the operators of these utilities to come join us on site for 2 days of training. We have it split up into day 1 and day 2, and an attendee can attend day 1 and stay for the full day, and they don't have to. There's no requirement that they participate in day 2, and you could also come into day 2, but we are encouraging folks that if they really want to know about the best practices of water audits, because in day 1 we do cover principles of non-revenue water, and also we are using the AWWA software, and we are providing training on that software as well. So we encourage them to attend day 1 if they've never had any background in this, or if they're really at the very base level of the whole process and trying to figure out for their utility, why would I do this? How would I go about doing this? What's the best method to use? What are the documents and reports and things that I'm going to need to access for that? And then day 2 is more focused, and it's a week later. So day 1 is Tuesday, April 11th at Toft Trees Golf Resort in State College, and we are providing food there. There will also be a full lunch. So we are inviting folks, and of course, registration is free. It is free to attend, courtesy of our funding through the SRBC as well. So we just want to encourage folks to attend. And then day 2 is Tuesday, April 18th, and that is, of course, on leakage management. And we're going to talk about more tools there, that builds on, obviously, a person having knowledge of the water auditing process and also the AWWA software. And as I said, you can choose to attend both days and or attend one. We would really like to see folks start with day 1 if at all possible. The other thing I wanted to mention about the training is that they are approved each for 5.5 training contact hours, And we have 1 day already approved. We're seeking approval on the second day, and I'm sure that will not be a challenge or anything. But they are technically approved through DEP for those training contact hours, and so folks needing them, such as the operators amongst us, they will be able to then receive those TCHs.
And you touched on this briefly, and admittedly, this is a leading question, but how did the funding for the program come about?
We were very lucky to be a responsive proposal to your consumptive mitigation funding opportunity. And we are so pleased to have taken advantage of it and to be here today talking about it. So thank you.
It's a grant program that we do each year that we love doing here. I want to bring George Kunkel into the conversation. George, welcome. First, tell us a little bit about your company.
So I am an independent consultant, a company of one. I had a long career with the largest water system in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia Water Department. But in recent years, I've been consulting to utilities of all sizes, regulatory agencies. I've been involved with research projects. And I also have a role with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection in their Outreach Assistance Program, which focuses on technical assistance to typically smaller systems who could most benefit from expertise of knowledgeable utility folks. And in that program, we've worked with some of the smallest systems in the state. So I've seen the full spectrum of conditions in water systems. And along the way in my career, I've worked with the American Water Works Association, or AWWA, to help develop some of the tools that we'll be providing in the trainings.
I was going to say, George, you literally wrote the book on water auditing, right? You're chair of the subcommittee that publishes the American Water Works Association M36 guidance manual, as well as co-author of the American Water Works Association free water auditing software that Suk mentioned, right? So you know what's going on out there with these utilities, especially the smaller utilities and their challenges. To you, why is this type of assistance needed?
Well, utilities are challenged by a number of things, maybe globally, and looking forward, just the issue of climate change is going to have an impact on water resources. So we need to be efficient with the water that we manage. When you get to the smaller utilities in the rural area, which make up the majority of the systems in Pennsylvania, they have capacity issues, limited usually by staff. Many of the systems are run by volunteers. And you couple that with aging infrastructure and difficulty in raising enough revenue in communities that just don't have the extra money. So it's hard to raise the rates. And these are small communities, so you don't have a large number of customers with a large revenue base like the more urban systems have.
Very difficult situations in some of these communities. I want everyone to say hello now to Drew Blackwell. Drew, tell us a little bit about Kavanaugh and Associates.
Yeah, hey, Stacey, thanks so much for putting this together for us. My name is Drew Blackwell, Director of Water Efficiency with Kavanaugh. A little bit about our company. We were founded in 1995, and our core services are water efficiency and bioenergy. But it hasn't always been like that. The company was founded as a traditional civil engineering firm, and that we found water loss almost by accident with a USAID project in Romania, where we were tasked with designing a water treatment facility to find out that the need was there because they kept losing water in their pipe infrastructure. So that introduced us to water loss, where we began looking at it further in the United States and working with industry leaders like George, who, as you said, literally wrote the book. And since then, we've been fortunate enough to deliver training programs, technical assistance training programs throughout the country, understanding that there are different drivers for water loss programs regionally, and just helping utilities become equipped to measure and control their water losses.
Drew, what do you think smaller utilities struggle with the most when it comes to water loss control or their conservation efforts? Is there something at the top of the list?
Yeah, I'll actually kind of echo what George just mentioned is staff resources is the most common hurdle that we hear from small utilities. Sometimes there are 3 or 4 folks that are running these small utilities. So staff resources capacity is always an issue. They have 1,000 other priorities that they have to meet. And so a lot of times they don't feel like they have the time, but through the training programs that we have done, we've learned that once they go through those first steps, learning how to use the AWWA free water audit software, learning what data is needed to go into that, and then understanding how to interpret those results. Once they stumble through that the first time, Stacey, they realize that it wasn't as hard or difficult or as time consuming as they thought. And B, now they have a plan in place. They have some next steps that they have to look forward to progressing their water loss program.
You guys are making it less intimidating, the entire process for these utility systems to whatever struggles they're trying to get over. Have you, and this question is for Drew or George, I kind of would like to give some tips to our listeners that they can actually walk away with today. Obviously, we want folks to sign up for your training or to reach out to RCAP in the future. But I know it's very dense. I mean, you've got 2 full days of training coming up. So I'm not sure if there's any kind of tips or tricks you could give us that we could pass along to any water utilities listening right now.
Yeah, Stacey, I'll kick in here, particularly for the Pennsylvania systems, which I'm used to working with. There are many of the steps they're already doing, just maybe not in the precise order that we're asking for. They're required to submit routine reporting to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. And we usually start with that data. And sometimes it's just a matter of helping them better organize the information they already have or start to collect some new information. So part of what comes out of that initial training is guidance on assembling the information so that the next year you do the audit, and it is an annual event, it's much easier. You've got that data that's already in place. So it's not a complete mystery. It's just helping them get organized and use some different terminology, different records, and usually they come away feeling a lot better about that.
Drew, you have anything to add for that?
I do, yes. So the number one thing that I will recommend, and this is a shameless plug, is go to rcapsolutions.org/events to register for the program on April 11th and 18th. But beyond that, Stacey, I'd just like to assure folks that getting started is the most important step. Wherever you are in the program, wherever you are in your water system, is an appropriate time to get started with water loss control. There's always going to be an excuse not to get started. Maybe it's maybe we're starting a new billing system, or maybe we're in the middle of a meter change out or something like that. But don't let that impede your taking that first step of effective water loss management. And the second thing that I'll say is identify your water loss team. This is what folks immediately pick up on, is that this is an interdepartmental process and effort. Even for the folks that are, it's only 3 to 4 staff in the utility. Don't let it be just a one-person show. Make sure you have folks that are familiar with supply metering, customer metering, billing, management. Definitely want to have a good, diverse group to set your water loss program up for success.
And sure, we're talking about saving utilities money. That's extremely important. That savings, could be passed on to the customer, also important. But there are environmental aspects to consider when we're talking about water loss in these systems. So maybe George, have you experienced the side of environmental conservation, and how often does that come into play with your work?
Well, it should come into play more often than the utilities recognize, but they are helping to manage the environment because they are using a precious resource, water. And when you have leakage, you're effectively, as a utility, taking out of the resource more water than your customers need. to your supplying your customers and your leakage. So to the extent you can minimize leakage, you can withdraw less and keep more of that water in the natural environment. So there's a direct environmental effect on the water resource. I'll also note too, this is not just a matter of water, but it's also a matter of energy. Because again, when we have leakage, we're taking more water than we need. We're treating it, that takes power. We're pumping it, that takes a lot of power. So to the extent you minimize the leakage, you reduce that power usage too, and we gain the energy savings also.
When we're looking specifically at the Bald Eagle Creek watershed, which is where you guys are focusing the training, maybe Sook, I'm going to bring you in for this question. Why are you focusing on the Bald Eagle Creek watershed?
It's a critical watershed, if you will, for Pennsylvania. And I mean, you know, all we have to do is to look at the situation last year, you know, where we had almost 36 counties across the state that were under drought watch. And as you can imagine, like every other area of Pennsylvania, this is a challenged watershed. It is a watershed that has experienced stresses. And so what we want to do is and also within this region, there are many, many smaller systems, smaller utilities that actually, you know, would be, you know, trying to do this on their own and probably would put off this particular item because they're dealing with so many other challenges. Not to mention financial challenges overall in terms of trying to upgrade infrastructure and make improvements. So this is a distressed watershed. It is a challenged area. It's a very important watershed for this area, and we want to be the best stewards of this resource that we can possibly be.
And all three of you have done trainings like this for many years. So does anybody have a success story that you can share with us that might encourage folks to come forward, bring their utility to the training, the upcoming training?
I'll share one success story. By the way, I'm the odd man out here. I'm in North Carolina, so the success story I'm going to share is in the city of Asheville, western part of North Carolina, mountainous area. The city of Asheville has been practicing and using the AWWA water audit software for approximately 15 years, and using those results to guide their water loss program and decisions to move their program forward. So over that time frame, they've had a growing population with increased consumption, but they haven't, over that period of time also, they haven't had to increase their water supply withdrawals simply because they've been able to reduce their water losses. And as George mentioned earlier, they're often the most immediate source of additional supply can be found in the water that we're losing in our distribution network.
George, do you have one for us?
Well, I have several. Just to mention on a national or North American basis, because Drew and I are working nationally. So a rural system, which I like to note, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, is Wilson County, Tennessee, who probably has the best leakage management in the country right now, yet they are a small rural system. So that just demonstrates it can be done. It can be applied to any size system. Coming back to Pennsylvania, and I've done probably about 30 or so audits of small systems. And again, a lot of them are struggling. They need some assistance, but we've run into, I'd say, a handful that really are very progressive. And they were looking for our assistance in as much as they wanted to be doing the best job that they could do. And then one related note to the Bald Eagle Creek watershed area, and part of the reason we targeted that area also was I've worked with a couple systems there, and one of which, again, is taking a very progressive stance. They do have very high leakage. They have some challenging conditions, and they have been perplexed by it, but they do want to keep pushing forward. And we've got water audit data from them now for going on 6 years. So we have a real rich pool of data to work with, and we're looking to not only do further auditing with them, but to install new innovative leakage controls in their system and really try to bring this leakage down and use that as a demonstration of the success and the way it can be applied to systems across Pennsylvania.
So your training involves not only teaching best practices using manuals and things like that and software, but then sometimes doing some physical structural work.
Yeah, so the project has 3 activities. Sort of if you look at a pyramid, at the base of the pyramid, the first level is training that's open to a wide range, a number of utilities as Sook described. We want to get as many involved as training as possible. For a somewhat smaller group, we want to go in and actually sit down with them for a day or so and help them compile their water audit and learn about their system. And then for a very limited number of systems, we want to go in and actually help to reduce the leakage, demonstrate some technology that will cut leakage.
I like asking why people do what they do. Maybe start with you. Where's your passion for this line of work stem?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, Stacey, actually. I think I've been fortunate to work with the RCAP program now for almost close to 30 years. And I will say that if George has written the book on water audits, and certainly both he and Drew are renowned experts, I will say that the RCAP program nationwide has probably written the book on technical assistance and training and how to actually work with rural areas, tribes, if you will, underserved areas. And I've just been fortunate to be a part of that process. And so my passion is really trying to help a community implement change and try to move that community forward to something positive as it relates to their infrastructure, as it relates to their water resources, as it relates to the public health in the community as well. And so that is something that we strongly try to take a look at. Just to give you some idea here of some numbers here, the RCAP network itself has served, just in the last fiscal year, has served close to 3.5 million rural and tribal residents and over 1,600, if you will, small communities. And we have leveraged close to $700 million in infrastructure funding. And so that's those numbers are obviously smaller for our region, our Northeast region, which is the 9 states and the territories. But just having taken a look at our numbers, we last year had 88 drinking water and wastewater projects that went forward for funding. And in that case, we were leveraging close to $88 million just in our region alone of infrastructure development and funding. So I think what we're also trying to do is, in this era where there is funding that is now available to make these necessary improvements, to do projects at the local level, we're trying to move these communities and these projects forward and get them before a funder. And I will just say also, certainly the RCAP program in Pennsylvania is probably the best kept secret. So we're just so glad to have the time to talk a little bit about everything here. And we do pride ourselves also, and I think this is the thing that I probably enjoy the most. The collaborations are very necessary. There's a whole network of technical assistance providers out there, if you will. And so collaborating with the experts, bringing those resources to the rural communities that wouldn't otherwise have that access is what we're all about.
I can literally hear the pride in your voice. I love it. Drew, same question.
Well, Stacey, I obviously got into water for the glitz and glamorous lifestyle of it all.
Of course.
No, I've always worked in water. Before I got into water loss, I was my focus was floodplain mapping. So I like to say I'm still trying to figure out where the water is going, just in a different way. But water is such a powerful and a precious resource. It's something that touches every aspect of every day of our lives. But also with what Sook said, really get a lot of joy out of helping communities, specifically with water loss. It's helping them save water, reduce costs, and be proactive about what they're doing.
George, nobody ever says it's for the money. What are you going to say?
No, it's not for the money, but I have something close. I'll give you a saying, maybe you've heard, what we don't properly value, we waste. And I think water is a underappreciated resource. And in the United States, we've been very successful at building infrastructure and delivering safe water, and it's allowed communities to grow and thrive. But we do have this issue. We waste a lot of water, and I don't think we're properly valuing it. So part of what we're doing in our work is to identify the amount of water lost, but we put a cost on it. And we try to show that value. And I think if we can elevate the value of water, that will assist us greatly in having greater efficiency in our operations.
Very well said, George. I want to give the last word to Suk. How can utilities across the Commonwealth, we've been focusing on the training that's coming up in Center County next month, but depending on when people are going to be listening to this, they may have missed the boat. So how can utilities across the Commonwealth benefit from your assistance?
So RCAP Solutions does have its own website, www.rcapsolutions.org. I, as a technical assistance provider, I'm based out of State College. So the other way to get a hold of me so that we can identify where your community is and who might be good to assist amongst our technical assistance providers, reach out to me at sing@rcapsolutions.org. And or you can give me a call, and, we have my contact information is on the webpage, but we can also make sure that we distribute it out. But I think that would be the most easy way to get a hold of us. And certainly you could also look for the flyer as well. And then I'll be one of the folks at the training.
I want to thank all three of you for joining us today. I said at the beginning we'd give away a few water saving secrets, but obviously, we only had time to cover a drop. You see what I did there. So if you're interested in learning more about water conservation practices for smaller utilities, or of course, more on any of these three companies, how they can help your particular efforts. And again, depending on when you're listening to this, you can sign up for their training. We'll put all that information on our website as well. So for more information on all of this, we invite you to visit our website here at the SRBC, which is srbc.gov.
And now you're current on issues of the Susquehanna. Thanks for listening to River Currents. See you downstream.